Hey guys, Taylor GammaEdge here coming at you with a market recap for July 25th, 2025. Bit of a runaway bull trend today. However, the awesome thing to see is that price pretty much to the penny amongst us friends, right, held the top of our transition zones. Once that held, saw that breakaway there. Confirmation from our market trend model, which saw sustained heavy buying pretty much all afternoon long. Like, great setup. Tools did exactly what they were supposed to do, help us stay in that long trade higher. But having said that, let's get into the pre-market prep of how we got those exact levels and then how those intraday tools manifested. So right, first getting into the pre-market prep, this is in the Discord. We do this every single day for the members. It is quite robust. You can see the amount of time and effort that we put into this. Starts out, our market trend framework. We look at the market trend model, seeing what a multi-day, multi-week time frame looks like. From there, we analyze SPX-A, SPX-P full structures just to understand from a sentiment structural point of view, call or put speculators dominating the structure. Once we understand our bearings from the market trend model and that SPX, SPX-A analysis, we have a good fundamental understanding of the backdrop of the market. And so from a swing trading time frame, that is very important. However, this video is more focused on intraday trading. So from there, what we specifically do is we get into, sorry, I passed it, is we get into our SPX 0DT analysis, right? And why 0DT? Because 0DT is a massive amount of volume that we see in the SPX on a day-to-day, and this has an influence on the intraday price action that we see day after day after day. So that is why we do this. And so, right, a couple of things that we were honed in on the session was the top of our key transition zone was we had around 5370, 5375, and then to the downside 5345. So this zone right here, and then our drunken tether range 5375, which is why we took that a bit higher. And so really within this zone, not super interested in trading, just given the back and forth nature of speculation, tend to see more choppy price action within this range. However, we did open slightly above, I believe, the top of the transition zone. We can go look at the chart in a second. But anyways, we came down, we held it pretty much again, 5372 to level, and then we started to progress higher up to 6400, which we noted in the pre-market prep. We can go read that in a second, how there were a lot of short calls at the strike which had the potential for a pin. We discussed that ad nauseum at the open. A lot of traders were placing butterflies there at the open with the chance, just given the risk to reward of the trade and the perceived likelihood that was to transpire. That's a great risk to reward bet. And so again, all that to say, it's really just a few simple key levels that we were focused on, right? The top of the transition zone here, given where we were opening, and then 6,400. And yes, there is nuance between 6,375 and 6,400, but I don't want to get you bogged down into that during this video. The main point of the video is, it just helps us understand the context of options speculation positioning in the 0DT complex. We can understand kind of where those key levels are at, and then price in the context of those key levels, if it's more favorable, that we're going to progress higher, progress lower, and where those stalling out points could be. So again, here, I'm going to pause this, or you guys feel free to pause this. You guys can give this a read. 5375 was down here, and then we had all those key strikes that we noted progressing up, mainly the 6400 strike. So going back to the price chart, my fault. We opened pretty much right at the top of the DEX transition zone, which is 5370. We're unable to break out of the top of the DEX drunken tether range, 5375, hence why this was a key zone for us coming into the session, right? Had this box marked on my chart to open the session, just so I knew. Traded down, held it again, and then finally we were able to bust out of it. And first sign, market trend model trending higher throughout the session. So again, constructive on an intraday basis. Our filtered tick right here as well, which signals significant buying or selling, large buying throughout the session. So again, above the key transition zone, 6,400 to the upside was a key target. Sustained buying coming in via the tick index. So, signal 1, signal 2, both constructive there. The other factor to note too is also just the tremendous amount of call speculation in the structure itself. In the money calls relative to the out of the money calls. So the in the money calls are going to continue to decay or limit to 1. So those are supportive flows coming into the market. And then as we continue to overtake these strikes, those are going to add more and more supportive flows as well. So hence kind of above 6370 with no signs of selling coming in, then any pullback is likely a buyable dip. Last thing I'm going to point you to, this is our intraday volume analysis, specifically vol M. What we're doing here is we're analyzing the intraday volume in SPX 0DT. Green is call volume, red is put volume. More specifically, on a 5-minute basis, we aggregate the call and the put volume. We do the distribution, find the midpoint of that distribution, which is called a centroid. And then we plot that for you. Obviously, calls and puts are separated. So what that does is throughout the session, as we plot it, we can understand the trend of speculation in terms of, speculating higher, speculating lower, or chopping. And then we can also understand, all things equal, based off of where speculation has occurred, where those centroids are likely to project out through the close. And with that, that's very helpful because we can understand the likely the likely path of price, assuming all things equal. And so today, obviously, yes, I know this was hindsight. This is the end of the day cut. We can go look at a cut in the middle of the session so you can see the utility of this. But, to the day, weren't seeing massive expansion to the call side higher. However, we were not seeing it materially drift lower as well. And so that not, spiking lower is a key kind of insight for us too. Because net, we're at least holding kind of 6,400, which tells us that a lid is kind of put on the market as we start progressing up towards 6,400. We're likely not going to see a sustained move above 6,400 unless we saw, something like this signature right here continue to persist, which obviously it did not. And then on the flip side, the put volume side, the trend was generally higher throughout the session as well. So again, that tells us, there's likely not a material like waterfall effect because we're not seeing a sustained move lower in the put speculation. And then that couples up very well with our market trend model as well. Kind of understanding buying from this point of view, and then buying from the options market point of view too. Those are both kind of key powerful levels. And then powerful confluences rather. And then we overlay our levels on top of that, breaking above 63.75 and then progressing up to 6,400. And so right here is just an intraday example of this chart, how you can see the utility of it, right? Our centroids are plotted, centroids plotted here. So all things equal, we can project out where those are going to be through the end of the close, assuming all things equal. So again, that's going to be the very powerful part of it. And, especially here, what this is telling me at this point of view is we're at 63.90. We're really seeing no upside speculation past 6,400. So trying to do a new long position here doesn't make a ton of sense to me, just in terms of the risk to reward. Keep in mind that's just from a directional point of view, like if you're trading futures or something. However, options sellers, if we're wanting to put on butterflies, stuff of those natures. Granted, I don't love this signature for a butterfly right now because, just the width of the projected, path is quite low. However, we knew 5,400 had a potential pinning effect to it, which again is why it's important to be understanding this options analysis type of stuff if you're not doing it yet. Because if you're not, then you would think there's no reason to be putting, a butterfly on at 6,400 when we open. But we knew with the data that we have, if it gives us that little bit of edge, little bit of insight, that can be very powerful. So with that, that's all I got for you guys tonight. That's really a rundown of our SPX 0DT process, how we identify those levels, how we identify the environment, and most importantly, how we understand once the bell rings, how people are transacting and how that, kind of jives with our key levels or kind of goes against them and makes us reassess. So with that, appreciate the time. You guys have a great rest of your weekend, and we'll see you on Monday. Thank you. Bye.